Okay, and let's go ahead and add a text layer. So we'll drag this out, and I'm going to change my text color to black. Okay, and just type in grunge type. Okay, and we're going to use bold for this. Okay, we'll get more of the effect that we want here, and I'm just going to jump in here and increase this. So one way I like to increase my text is by placing the cursor into this area and then just hold down shift and click the up arrow, and that will just increase it by increments of 10. It's a nice quick way of getting a nice big text image. Okay, jump back to the move tool, and now I have my type layer. Okay, so I'm going to grab one of my brushes now on a new layer above this layer. Okay, and I'm going to use the brush tool here, and I will use my abstract shape. Okay, and I'm just going to select a nice kind of blue. Okay, and with the brush tool now, I'm going to just kind of move across this image and add in some texture to this. Okay, so I'm filling this layer up with a brush, and I'm going to flip between a couple of different colors as I do this, some blues and some oranges. Okay, and once I'm happy with the colors that I've got in there, I can just kind of keep building this up a little bit more. Then I'm going to come down to my layer and right click on that layer and turn it into a clipping mask. Okay, so you can see now instantly we get this nice kind of breakup of that text layer. Okay, so the next step here is I want to cut into this to reveal a bit of the background, and I can come back and paint on this layer. Everything we do in this is going to be non-destructive, so we'll always be able to come back and like add a little bit more detail into the layers, which will give us a nice control over what we're doing. Okay, so now I'm going to create on my grunge type layer a layer mask. Okay, so you'll see now I've got a layer mask. So by clicking this button down here on that layer, and I'm going to select my other brush tool, so the plain brush tool that I created. Okay, and I'm going to use black to paint on here. So basically now when I paint on here, it's going to be cutting into that type. So you can see here I'm cutting away at the edges of the type here. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to do a couple things here just as we modify this. I'm going to add a hue saturation adjustment layer for the layer below, just to kind of tweak and work on the color. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same for these two layers. So I'm going to add a hue saturation adjustment layer here, turn on colorize, and right click here and turn on a clipping mask. Okay, and that's going to restrict any kind of adjustments I do to that layer. Okay, so you can see now we start to get kind of the effect that I'm looking for. So it's kind of slicing into the type. And what you need to make sure when you're doing this is that you work on the right layer. Okay, so I've accidentally painted on this layer here, so I'm going to jump back in to my type layer mask, and then I can just use the black here to kind of slice out parts of my text, and then if I flip the white to the foreground image, I can paint back in parts of that text. So I can use the X key to flick these back and forth and then just cut in to that in some spots. Okay, and then also bring it back. Okay, so you can kind of eat away at this. Now, as you can see, it doesn't really matter that this was an aeroplane when I'm using it here. It's more important that it's kind of slicing in to the image. And I'm just going to come back to my brushes here and turn off the color dynamics. It's adding a bit too much control there, so it's flipping to the white when I don't want it to. Okay, so you can see here we're cutting nicely into our type using these brushes we created, and that randomization of those brushes creates a nice effect. Okay. Now if we create any other layers within that type, it's going to borrow the transparency from the text layer below, which is nice. So if I add a new layer here, you can see there are all these clipping masks. So if I grab a brush tool here and just start to paint in some different kind of colors and shades, okay, then it's going to paint over the top of that. Okay, and if I paint above the clipping mask here, add another clipping mask to it, okay, then it's going to put some more color into there, some different types of color. So normally I'd find myself kind of flipping between things like the eraser tool as I work on this, and then also using the different brushes to add some texture and effects. And I'm going to do a couple more things here. One is I'm going to grab a new layer here, okay, add it to that stack of clipping masks that I've got, and then I'm just going to grab one of the regular default brushes that I have here, okay, and I'm going to pick some different colors. And for this I'm going to be using a nice soft brush, so take the hardness right down to 0, and I'm going to use the square brackets just to increase the size of it. Okay, so once we've done that, you'll see we can paint in some nice big blasts of color. So I'm going to pick a couple of nice colors here and then just blast them across, and then I'm going to use the layer blend modes to actually refine this a little bit. So let's go to multiply, and you'll see we start to get some nice matte mixing of those colors with the background colors. Okay, and I'm going to finish up on color there. It's going to be a nice combination of all those different layers that I've worked on. And one very last thing that we'll do here to add to this is I'm going to grab an image that I created in another lesson on creating polygons in Adobe Photoshop, and we're going to place this over the top. So I'm going to go to File, Place Embedded, and grab this polygon image. We'll place it in here, and once I've got it in there I'm going to hit Enter and right click to add it to the clipping mask set that I've been working on. Okay, and you can see these nice lines kind of drop in there well and kind of add to that effect. So we can keep going, grab our brushes and continue working in these different patterns that we have. And one very final thing before we finish up here, this type is totally editable. So with all the layers and the adjustments we've been doing, if we jump down to the type layer, okay, look for the T of the type layer and then double click here, okay, you can see the text highlight. So we can begin to change the text. So okay, and it keeps all that texture that we've worked in to our previous image. Okay, I hope you found this useful. Playing with layers in this way with the layer mask is a really fun way to develop different ideas, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with on the project wall.